Hi, Tim Ard here, and welcome to this edition of Along the Forest Apps Road. I just wanted to take a couple minutes to give you a little bit of an idea of something we've been doing. And we have a podcast series. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, as well as on Anchor Podcasts. We've been doing it now for 2 or 3 months. And we're just putting right now our eBook, which is the complete guide to chainsaw safety and directional felling, on an Audible form. I've just been reading the book, which has been available since, I guess, 2002 on our website, as well as from Barnes and Noble on their ebook series. And I just thought it would be good. I started reading chapter by chapter, and thought you might enjoy taking a listen to and look at the same time of what we're doing there, and kind of entice you to hopefully go up and sign up on our podcast series. It's kind of unique to listen through the different episodes, and hopefully you can do this while you're working or driving or whatever it might be. It's a pretty neat format. So if you're not able to catch us on the YouTube channel, then you can listen to quite a lot of it on our podcast channel. So please take advantage. So right now we're reading through the first half of chapter, or one section of chapter 6 of the book, and it's a little bit on maintenance. So hope you enjoy it. Please let us know and sign up, and we hope to see you along the Forest Apps Road. This is Tim Ard wishing you good sawing. Hi, and welcome to this edition of Along the Forest Apps Road podcast. I'm Tim Ard, your host, and we are reading through our ebook series, which is called The Complete Guide to Chainsaw Safety and Directional Felling. And we've been going through the chapter by chapter, talking about what's in this particular book. And chapter 6 is where we're at now, page 59, and it's RDT. And that stands for Reduced Downtime, a maintenance system for professionals. And so I want to kind of go through parts of this. We probably won't go through the entire chapter on this one. This will be a long one. But we'll at least do part 1 of chapter 6. With the continual advancement in technology, I'm frequently asked by professional loggers and casual users of chainsaws why a maintenance program is needed for today's chainsaws. It only stands to reason that with technology advancement, maintenance requirements for chainsaws should be on the decline. And to a certain extent, this is true. Recent developments in chainsaw and other two-cycle technology, such as electronic ignition, the carburetor system, and rubber and plastic materials, have reduced the frequency of routine maintenance tasks. Over the years, I have spoken to thousands of saw operators, saw owners, saw dealers, saw sales representatives, saw manufacturers' technical representatives, design engineers, and landowners who have attended my training programs. From each of them, I reaffirmed new meaning and importance to the need for maintenance. Each had their own idea of what maintenance entails, and it's evident that specific maintenance programs and philosophies are used by logging and tree care crews. When asked, each explained what they do and when they perform maintenance on their equipment. Two common maintenance systems, philosophies, so to speak, tend to surface. We don't run junk. If our saws don't work for us, we replace them with something that will. We've been in business a long time, and we can't make a living running junk. We keep spares. We can't afford downtime. So we keep 3 new saws in our storage room and at least 1 on the truck. There are wise thoughts. These are wise thoughts and profitable to a point. However, there are slight fallacies in both of these. When is a saw or any piece of equipment junk? There's a fine line between when a saw is better off repaired than replaced. Why is it junk? If you could run the saw another week, would it provide more profits to apply to the purchase of a new saw or other piece of equipment? Regarding the saw system philosophy, if you have 3 or more spare saws, how many saws do you have to maintain? 1 or 3? To keep your saw in tip-top condition, you need to develop a maintenance schedule that is tailored to your use of the saw. For the professional logger, routine saw maintenance will be performed more frequently than by the casual woodcutter. Simply put, time is money. Whether you depend on your saw for your livelihood or simply use it to get some weekend chores done, when you're ready to cut, you want to avoid downtime. When the saw is not running due to a maintenance problem. I call this reducing downtime, or RDT. Let's look at 5 elements that should become an integral part of your routine maintenance program. Number 1, air and the air filter. All chainsaws are internal combustion engines and thus need air to run. Modern chainsaws are designed to run at very high speeds, 10,000 to 14,500 revolutions per minute. That's RPM, depending on the model. Think about this for a moment. The engine's piston cycles 10,000 to 14,500 times in 1 minute, and with each cycle, referred to as a stroke or in simpler terms a breath, it must take in the required amount of air and fuel mixture in its combustion chamber to produce the power needed for the job at hand. Engine size is related in cubic centimeters, cc's. Cubic centimeters is the volume of air-fuel mixture the engine's combustion chamber will take in with each cycle or stroke. If we look at an 85 cc engine that turns at a free speed of 13,000 RPM, that's 1,105,000 cc's of air that the saw must take in every minute to perform properly. Let's compare that to your breathing rate. An average adult inhales and exhales approximately 100 cc's of air with each breath. At least at rest in a seated position, normal respiration requires you to take about 17 breaths per minute. You do the math, 1,700 cc's of air per minute. That's quite a difference between the amount of air you and your chainsaw breathes in a minute's time. In fact, it would take you 10 hours of normal breathing to inhale and exhale as much air as a chainsaw uses in 1 minute's run. So you're asking yourself, what's the point to this? The point is the engine's air filter functions as the saw's nose. Have you ever blown your nose after working in dusty, dirty conditions? Not a pretty sight, is it? You can blow your nose and help clean dirt and grime away from your nostrils to keep your breath better, but a saw cannot blow its own nose. You must clean the air filter on a regular basis to assist the saw to perform at its best. I recommend you use a toothbrush or shortened paintbrush to keep the filter free from dust, or simply tap it off in some cases to keep it as dust-free as possible. Keep the brush handy by tying it to a fuel can or keeping it in a tool belt or pouch that you carry to the job site. Don't scrub the filter, though. Just brush it. On most saws, it only takes a couple of minutes to do this. This should be done at each fuel fill-up. This will keep the saw breathing correctly. I like to emphasize the importance of a clean air filter with an interesting story from one of my training sessions held in Maryland. We started the maintenance segment of the program, and I asked all the participants to remove their air filter covers and inspect the filter. Dove right into the task, except one operator who just stood there. When I asked him if his air filter was clean, he replied, "My saw doesn't have a filter." I went over and removed the filter cover, and to his surprise, there was the filter. And to no one's surprise, it was dirty. There were chips, dust, and dirt piled on the filter about 1 inch thick. After raking this debris from the filter, I found a corner of the filter was missing. The operator's statement at this point was, "I bet that hole has been in there since I bought this saw." He bought the saw 6 months earlier and had never cleaned or inspected the filter. I went on to explain to the operator and the group that could have caused the corner of the filter to fail and break away. I pointed out that if you take a soda straw and suck on it, air passes through it. If you pinch one end with your finger and try to suck air through the other end, what happens? The straw collapses. This is what happens to a two-cycle engine with a dirty or restricted air filter. Think of the engine as an air pump. That's usually all a two-cycle engine is. Every time the piston goes up and down, the engine inhales and exhales just like an air pump. If the engine can get enough air to mix with fuel and this mixture ignites from the spark plug, it will run. It may run slow, 3,000 to 8,000 RPM, but it runs. A pinched straw will collapse and expand with every breath you take, and the air filter will do the same thing if it's plugged or restricted. Eventually, the filter element will fatigue and fail just as any piece of screen would do after you bend it back and forth many times. Now, imagine trying to suck in and exhale on a restricted straw 13,000 times each minute. To conclude the story, I'm certain that's what's happened to the corner of his filter. Over time, the repeated pulsing of the nearly plugged filter caused the corner to fail and break out. And when the filter remains dirty, the same process happens to the intake tubes, gaskets, and other engine parts. A saw with an air injection system results in cleaner intake air, faster engine acceleration, less frequent need for air cleaning, and longer engine life, but it still requires the filter to be cleaned. Well, that's the first part of Chapter 6. And Chapter 6 is a long one, so we're going to stop there, and we'll continue later. But I just wanted to let you know that we are putting this out on our YouTube channel, Along the Four Steps Road, Tim Ard. And it's also available, the entire book in audio, as we're going down through these chapter by chapter, on our podcast series. Our podcast series, Along the Four Steps Road, is available on Amazon. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. So please check those out. Your local podcast provider, just search for Tim Ard or Along the Four Steps Road, and join us each time we upload a new podcast program. So this is Tim Ard. We hope to see you along the Four Steps Road somewhere, and we wish you good sawing.